Hello everyone, welcome back to the May edition of the priority farming list for Draconic Essence. Now I'm going to make a little change here. I know we called it a tier list in the first rendition in April. I think a priority list is a better representation of what this list is designed for, obviously to show you which dragons that you should be farming for, which ones have higher priority over the others to get first. A lot of these dragons, especially in the nice to have category, specifically talking about the skill damage dragons, they are very, very good. They are good dragons. They're nice to have, but in true endgame content, they get outshone by some of the Gala dragons, whereas these resistance dragons or even the skill haste dragons still have a place and hold their own for the slots that they occupy. For example, the support units would prefer a dragon like Freya over, say, Reborn Zephyr, as their job is to add buffs to the team, or amps in the case of Nihility, right? So just food for thought in terms of how you're progressing your game from start to finish, depending on where you're located. It's difficult at times, you know, for a new player to look at something where an endgame player already has all their weapon bonuses and they're, you know, recounting their experiences. Maybe you don't have a specific character. Right now I know people are talking a lot about not having Gala Leonidas for the newest Dominion fight. We can talk about that in a future video. For here specifically, we're going to look at the new dragons that have dropped, one of each element. And of course, if you guys just want to see the completed list, that's going to be in a link in the description below, of course, with the Discord. So definitely join the Discord if you want to see that discussion for anything Dragalia Lost. As well as if you do jump to the end or to the link just to see the completed list, be sure to subscribe and drop a like for doing so. Alright, so yeah, we can get right into it actually. The first dragon I want to talk about then is Corsaint Phoenix. So Corsaint Phoenix is a pretty interesting dragon. Paralysis as a whole, not really the best. She is, you know, rather lackluster when it comes to the paralysis affliction. Paralysis as a whole is kind of weird. A lot of units that use paralysis actually have a really low uptime. We're talking like 13 seconds per affliction. Whereas if you look at poison or burn or scorch rend or any of the other afflictions, it's around 21 seconds. And even in the case of, you know, the shared skill from Formal Hakim, it's 30 seconds, right? Which is a huge, huge amount of time for a single affliction instance. So every affliction instance really adds up. And that being said, if you hit that cap, you no longer have access to that Punisher, which you often see Light doing with paralysis. So that definitely hurts Corsaint Phoenix's performances. As a whole, though, she is a 50% strength dragon with the Punisher, which is pretty good, but comparable to, you know, another farmable essence dragon like Cupid, it's hard to justify her in the current state. In the future, though, I could see her moving up, depending on if we get better paralysis, maybe shares, or you know, more access to paralysis res down. Now we do have it in Radiant Swansang, for example, but that's a singular unit, and it's not on a shared skill. So she's not currently meta for the content that is released, which is Lilith. So for that reason, you know, Corsaint Phoenix sits in a better options available category. So pretty easy with that one. We can kind of move right along here. Now we actually have both the Prime Strength dragons. They can kind of be talked about in tandem because they have the same kind of feature. If you play this game primarily in co-op, then these dragons are completion purposes only. If you play this if you play this game in solo, which a lot of people are doing with auto content, but you care more about, you know, time attack, then these dragons would actually jump into the nice to have category. So depending on your style of how competitive you are with the game, which, albeit the competitive nature of time attack is not very competitive, right? Because this is primarily a player versus environment game, PvE game. So for that reason, I'll probably slot them in the center between nice to have and completion purposes. putting it in the better options available category. So kind of expanding on that, these dragons with their prime strength abilities are essentially subpar variants of the former dragons, right? The 60% strength dragons. So if you're looking at Cerberus, if you're looking at Zephyr, those dragons inherently are just going to be better because they will be 60% strength all the way through. These dragons, on the other hand, if you're using the dragon, it starts at 45% strength, and then when your skill 1 is ready, you get that 15% strength buff, which then brings you to a little bit higher than 60, right? Because it's a buff versus an aura. So the buff and the aura are multiplicative, so you do get a little bit higher than that 60%. However, there is a downtime on it. So, and most notably, if you're going to be using this dragon, then you would have these dragons slotted on an AI unit, which means that your lead would be taking advantage of that strength buff. So, you know, if you're using it in co-op, it's kind of, there's just better options, right? I mean, you'd be better off using a Vayu or, you know, Konohana, right, or Siren, right, for skill damage to really get that burst through if you're going to be going for, you know, filling up your skills. And if you're going to be using it in solo play, then they do have that niche where you can use them in time attack. So that's kind of the nice part is, you know, if you're doing it in time attack and you're trying to front load all your damage into one unit to get a really fast clear, they do have that viability, but it's few and far in between for, I'm sure, a lot of game states that you guys are interested in playing in. A lot of people seem to just want to get the rewards for time attack and then get out as soon as possible. That being said, about time attack, if you guys do want to see more about, you know, my thoughts on time attack and how things went, I actually almost cracked 100, top 100 in time attack. Just didn't have enough time to make it that final push. I was going through my finals and finishing up the design project I was working on for university. But I'm going to be making a separate video on talking about how that works, kind of the thought process that goes into building the team and then getting down a simple format to recreate the same instance so that you can roll for crits or anything like that. But yeah, as a whole, the Prime Strength Dragons are rather lackluster. They even get damaged a little bit further by Nihility because that buff isn't going to actually work. So then they become more like 4-star dragons, and then at that point, you know, if it's a 4-star dragon, then it's just there are just better options available as far as that stands. Now the last two dragons that we can talk about, these guys are very good. So if you're looking at the, you know, GNC, the bunny, this one in particular, I'm definitely going to put in the need to have category. The bunny dragon is really good in all forms of content. So if you're looking at Morsiati with the buff zone for the raid, that's super, super good. Because obviously your skill fill zone, that buff zone, is going to be filling the skills of all the units on the map. And that's 16 units now, so it's 4 times more effective than it would be if you were playing in co-op or if you're playing in solo. Then additionally, you even have access to that skill for a myriad of different cheeses. Pretty much all the Agito can be cheesed by the bunny. Which is pretty great for farming purposes, especially now that we have a huge double drop cycle going on again, which is pretty nice. And finally, even that skill fill skill is actually pretty useful. So, you know, cutting the total SP cost of all of your skills by 30% when it's at max unbound is pretty useful. I mean, if you're using, like, say, Lapis, for example, and you have her as your AI unit and you're running her in Lilith, that's, of course, a 30% reduction to her skill 1, which means you have more access to your debuffs or your dispels, right? So the more dispels you can get off, obviously, the safer your team will be, the smoother your run will be. So there's a lot of merit there. Of course, also, the bunny is going to work very, very well with Gala Elisan. Again, Gala Elisan having really, really good skills to have access to. Her 25% flame res is phenomenal in auto compositions, as well as in just any compositions, along with her spiral, which she now has. So yeah, this dragon definitely enables quite a lot. I would say definitely want to pick one up, and it will really only get better as Legend Twins comes out, probably later this month, if I had to guess. And of course, the fact that it does offer a little bit of strength, 45% strength, is going to help with breaking the overdrive bar. So a lot of good things for this dragon. A lot can be discussed about this dragon. Entire videos can be made on it. But, you know, for the time being, enough said. That's really the placement on it as far as we're concerned. Now this last one, Azazel, you know, I've been back and forth on this one, but I really think that he's going to be in the nice to have category. And if I had to place him, it'd probably be like the top of the nice to have category, right? He's not necessarily needed for anything, but he has really great scaling. So most notably, as the game progresses forward, other support units or units that weren't necessarily designed to support, like Galacleo, for example, can take really good use of his skills. And not just his dragon skill, but also his skill haste that he gives access to, because, you know, now it's more defense down, it's more buff zones that you can place, with Galacleo in particular, which is extremely good for the rest of the team. Buff zones as a whole obviously are very, very good. He doesn't particularly give one, but what he does give access to is a similar aura to Freya. So you have the HP, right, to make the unit a little bit bulkier, and then of course the main component which you care about is the 35% skill haste. So getting your skills up faster is always a big plus. In the case of Grace, it's definitely nice to have this dragon on Grace, but it's not necessary. You know, I've done a lot of runs with using Nidhogg or High Zodiarch in his place, as I really only had a 0 on bound Azazel at the time, and didn't really feel like I ever needed him or missed him for anything. But he does, of course, make runs smoother. The skill haste is going to allow Grace's life shields to come up more often, right? So, you know, as a whole, he's definitely a nice to have dragon. He definitely will make runs smoother, and he's definitely a strong dragon. But he's really not needed for any specific content. Of course, again, you know, he can make things smoother, and of course, when I think Master Cayenne dropped, yeah, Master Kai, and then even Legend, he was used with Padia and other support units to get some nice cheese clears going. But beyond that, it did take a little bit of coordination to get those higher clears. So yeah, I mean, this pretty much wraps up the list. I don't think this time around I'm going to be making any changes. You know, since the last time we looked at the Draconic Essence list, you know, the new Dominion fight for Flame and Wind hadn't quite released. But I'm fairly happy with the placements here that have been listed. So yeah, this is going to be the list. And that'll do it for May. So if you guys want to see my thoughts on the other dragons that were listed, I'll have a link in the description for the previous list, which was April's Draconic Priority Tier list there. And if this helped you guys out, let me know in the comments below. And of course, what priority farming list you'd like to see next. Again, my name's Orthodox. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Take care.